All right, family, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you all for joining us again for another Parent Power Hour on another Monday. Happy Monday. Hope your day has been a wonderful one. Today, once again, we have esteemed guests as always. This time, it's actually our second consecutive week of having representative from Baltimore City Public Schools. We have Miss Janise Lane from Teaching and Learning and Miss Maria Navarro as well from City Schools. And of course, the face of the franchise, Mr. Tyrone Barnwell. Great to see everyone. And thank you once again for joining in. And please, today, as always, we are looking forward to your questions and your comments. We're going to start this one, though, family, as we always do, with a connection question. So the question first, as you know, goes to our guests. And we'll start with Miss Lane. The question is, are you an early bird or a night owl?
Thank you. First, I want to say thanks for having us here. We're super excited to be here. I would answer that question. Typically, I think a night owl, maybe trying to get things done for the morning to make sure the day is prepped. But lately, we have been burning the candle at both ends. So I would say it's been both a night owl and an early bird because we've had to close out some big decisions in the evening, but to be prepped and ready for them in the morning. So I think I'm kind of in between right now.
Okay. Miss Navarro?
Hi, William. Thanks for having us as well. I will say I am a morning, an early morning, sometimes a 4 a.m. morning. But similar to Janise, I've had to stay up late these days, so I'm trying to figure out how to turn into a night owl.
I will go next. All things considered, I am an early riser, early bird. But, you know, I too, I think the state of the world and how schedules have changed, I'm like a tween. I'm still going to bed early, but I'm not always rising as early as I used to, admittedly. So, Mr. Barnwell.
Yeah, I am a night owl. And it's just no getting around it. I don't like the morning. I don't want the morning. I don't have me in the morning. Like I come alive at night. Seriously, like I mean, everything is flowing for me at night, and in the morning I'm just like shut down.
Thank you all very much for participating. Family, we are looking forward to your comments too. Don't think now, Tyrone, I haven't said this to our audience, but maybe they're doing it and I don't know. But
Mhm.
we want you also, family, to give us your answer to the connection question as well. So
Yes,
please
put them in the
chime that
comments.
in with your comments and your questions. Also, a very special thank you all for joining and sharing the program. More and more people are listening. More and more people are getting this great, valuable information. That is all due to you. So thank you, family. So we're going to go to our questions now. Ms. Lane, I'll start with you. The decision was made last week that city schools would be using a virtual learning model, at least at this point, till about the middle of October. Of course, taking into account all major health concerns with the COVID-19 crisis. What can you tell us about the virtual academy and the distance learning? How is that going to function for our students and teachers?
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, we are really excited around the strategy and the plan that we've been developing in city schools. Um, of course, the first concern of ours is the health and safety of our families, of our students, of our teachers, of our principals. And so, really, had been planning both avenues, really thinking about the hybrid model of being able to have some students face to face and then also the virtual opportunity. So, really coming together to utilize what we learned over spring at the closure in spring to really think about what happened that worked well for teachers, that worked well for students. We spent the past couple of months really building a community effort of talking to families, talking to students. I was actually on a webinar today with a group of our students who were amazing and really telling us what worked well, what was the elephant in the room around the virtual learning. So taking those pieces and really thinking about what are the learning experiences we want to ensure for each and every student in the district. So thinking about what does that look like? How will students experience it? How will families experience the learning? And how do we help support that in meaningful ways that continue throughout the year? We also were super fortunate to bring along with us Dr. Maria Navarro. She used to be with us in city schools, and actually was brought on board for the next couple of months to really help us through the virtual transition. So bringing together things around how are we assessing, how are we offering professional learning to our teachers, and really then also thinking about the virtual academy as a self-standing piece as well. There were a lot of discussions early on about the virtual academy and where would that situate itself in the learning. We will be starting all of city schools on a virtual platform so that as we again closed in spring, we had a lot of lessons learned, but we also know that we want to launch the fall in a very different way so that families have all supports, our students all have devices and accessibility, as well as clear support through their learning, knowing that we're starting the year this way. And as we start to think about things like hybrid opportunities for students to come in, we know that there's still going to need to be a virtual offering for families that choose that as their choice, for maybe students that are compromised or they just don't feel comfortable coming back into that setting. And so Dr. Navarro is helping us plan out what that academy will look like. But again, that will start a little later in the year. Maybe in early October, to think about as we transition, how do we keep some students going fully virtual while we'll be trying to bring as many students back as we can in the hybrid model.
Okay, so Dr. Navarro, what can students expect when they log in? What do parents expect? How long is the day?
Well, I'll let Janise, and if I guess it's okay to go by first names. I actually prefer going by first names, but I'll let Janise talk a little bit about the length of the time. I just want to say that I think what we are working towards, and city school staff has been diligently working on this, and even teachers have been building their capacity to really make these online learning sessions much more engaged, have students be much more engaged, communicate a lot more with families. I think they will see the work that City Schools has done this summer to really plan instruction well for students to be able to access learning digitally from home, everybody from home at the beginning. And then we'll be working on offering some options to families as I believe we've heard from families that they really want to have some options as the district moves to a hybrid model.
And I would just add to that, that what we've been doing is thinking about how do we leverage the strength of pieces that are in play in city schools. So many of you know that we led a really rigorous adoption around curriculum. So how do we bring that curriculum to the virtual platform? So, we looked at that for issues around high quality instruction, rigorous learning for students and tasks that are worthy of engaging our students every day. And now thinking about how do we partner with our curriculum partners as well as learn best practice. So the teams have done research around developmentally appropriateness or time on task for students online. We've been working with our wholeness partners, our wholeness office, to think about how do you take breaks during the day that are relevant for grade levels. So, if you're working with kindergarten students, how do they take a body and a brain break to kind of get their wiggles out and then get back into the learning? And so actually there will be some schedule recommendations made to the school board tomorrow evening. So if you want to tune in and watch those live in action and see the different recommendations, there are recommendations that are available for all grade levels, but really looking at pre-K and K specifically around those developmental appropriate kinds of ideas. And then looking at grades 1 through 5 have recommendations built in, grades 6 through 8, and then grades 9 through 12 that both give guidance to what do we expect not only for students to do, but what do we want teachers to do? So what are our live sessions, or we call those synchronous sessions, where the teacher is actually with the students? And then what are asynchronous or student independent activities that happen at each grade level? So guidance will be structured around both of those. As well as a major goal of ours will be continuing to do the family updates so that families know the expectation, know where to get help when they need it. And also we're working with our schools teams to think about how principals and school leaders at the school base can offer supports to families at an ongoing basis with the teachers as well. Finally, I would just add that part of that schedule recommendation will also have times where teachers are available for planning office hours, where they'll be available to work with students, but also with families, so that if a family needs support or needs additional guidance in how to help their student, that would happen at each school level to be able to support that work as well.
Okay, so they can tune in, you said tomorrow?
Yes, tomorrow evening at 5 on City Schools website. If you go, the board meeting is streamed live there. It's also on our Facebook and Twitter. We'll give the link to kind of connect you there, that you could see the presentation and see what's being proposed currently.
Okay, thank you. So the board, so if they tune in tomorrow, they can kind of see what direction a regular practical school day would look like virtually.
That's right. And
All
then
right.
and then soon after that, William, our goal is to start posting some of those documents. If you follow City Schools Instagram, Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, you'll see some of that information posted on our virtual learning website, so that again, there's just resources that families can see as we continue to develop.
Okay, thank you. Tyrone, anything from the hotline thus far?
Unmute yourself first, Tyrone. As always, welcome family and those who are watching us online, joining us online. Shout out Darlene Patterson's online, Latoya Rice, Maya, of course, K. Patton Graham, Joanne. Send a shout out to for free folks that's on. We do have one question. I will, before I read this, I will encourage y'all that is watching to ask y'all questions about virtual learning, about reopening while we have them on here. Please share this live. How will teachers be chosen for the virtual model once the transition is made to the hybrid model with a virtual model?
That's a great question. I can start, and then Maria can join in as well. These are considerations that we're developing right now and finalizing. So we know that there are some teachers that we want to make sure have an option to be able to support students virtually, and also teachers that will be identified. Dr. Navarro has been working, or Maria, sorry, has been working with our leadership team to really think about how do we also keep the community factor in the schools, so that, having teachers from each of the schools based on student population and who's interested in joining the virtual option is really the considerations that are starting to happen right now, to think about not only do we want our students to have the best teaching in front of them, we want to have some options for teachers that may need that. And so, Maria, I don't know if you want to add any additional context.
The only thing I think I'll say is that we really want to flush out what the virtual academy is going to look like and feel like, not just for families and students participating, but also for teachers. And so I think we're in the process of doing that, and more information to come. And that's going to be important also as teachers look at options, as well as we're talking about families looking at options.
Also, actually got a couple. Blackboard Collaborate only allows teachers and students to see 4 or so people at a time. Will teachers be still using this platform, or will there be options for Zoom and or Google Meet where teachers can see a lot more students?
That's a great one. We've heard a ton of feedback from teachers around that, so thank you so much for the input. Absolutely. We realized that I keep saying last year like it was so long ago, in the spring, when we launched into the COVID closures and the opening of the curriculum work that we were doing, there were issues of security that we needed to address. We needed to make sure that our students were safe, both in the virtual environment, and also that our teachers had options to be able to communicate with their students. And in getting the feedback, that was the largest piece we heard from Blackboard, was that the teachers, especially, first of all, they want it to be with their kids, as we well know, right? They want it to be in the classroom. They want it to be face-to-face. It was hard enough to be at a distance learning, but then to only have 4 faces in front of you that you could see was hugely problematic. So we will definitely be switching platforms. We will be providing ongoing support, again, for teachers, families, and leaders around the platform. We're finalizing those negotiations right now around which platform, but I can tell you it will be one that will be used across the district, and then also will be giving more accessibility to teachers, but also considering those safety tools. So we want to make sure that there's interaction, that there's a way for students to provide chats and information during that, but that there's also security measures that have been addressed within those platforms.
Okay. Okay, great. Then let's see. Okay, you got another day coming in here now. Okay. Why was October 16th chosen as a date for beginning to implement a hybrid? It's not a full quarter.
Sure. So I think one of the things that we shared early on was that our goal always, just like we heard from our teachers, we've heard from our principals, is the most effective way is to be in front of students and having students engage with you. So we knew that a hybrid model was really important, and we had been planning for both the hybrid and a virtual opportunity. Knowing that we do not want to wait until the end of first quarter to say that we're only doing virtual at this point. We want to measure and make sure that if there are health guidelines and safety guidelines that we can follow, that we can bring students back in small groups to potentially start looking at one-on-one instruction, small group instruction for groups. Could be for our English language students, could be for students who have yet to meet grade level, really starting to bring that work together. And at the same time, it gives us time to plan for the full-on virtual model. So if, again, a family's choice is to stay virtual for the year, then we would have time to do that collaboration and coordination across the teams, working both with Maria's team that is working with our content teams to look at the curriculum for the year. And then how do we ensure that students are getting the same as their colleagues across? So if a student decides to stay in the 3rd grade virtual academy, how do we guarantee that that is aligned to what all the 3rd graders in the district are doing? So we want to think about the equity in that learning and making sure that happens. It gives us time to be both proactive in our planning, but also to continue to evaluate the situation around us.
Okay. Welcome others that's just joining us. Stacy, Octavia, Michael Cheney sends greetings to everyone here. So definitely want to shout that out. What platform will be used for live instructions and conferences?
So right now we're finalizing that. I can't say which one it is because we're in that discussion with our legal department and in with procurement. That will come out very soon. It would not surprise me if it won't be at the end of tomorrow's board meeting. We'll make sure that you have that information available so that you can follow that and understand that and see what's available for us. But I just can't announce it right now without those alignments.
Okay.
But I can say this, I promise it will do what you've all been asking us about. So I can say that much.
Okay. From talking with parents and students, we know from talking to parents and students that requiring students to be on the platform at a specific time each day is very problematic and leads to some students not being able to attend, and teachers are then required to retract that lesson in the office. Is there something in place to help out and work with that going forward?
Absolutely. So as we did in the spring, we did some videoing of the lessons that were happening so that if families had multiple students online at the same time or had other instances where they couldn't join in that session, they could join later to make sure that they were part of that learning. We've been exploring some things. Maria has been working to really look at some cool technology around things like swivel cameras and different things that could be happening in the classroom that we can tape what's happening and share that, as well as taping the sessions that happen. There will be, as I said, guidance around synchronous learning. So that is the time when the teacher is actually working with the students live in the, in the platform. We do want to make sure that families understand the importance of that time. So if they can prioritize the learning for your child to engage in that, that's the time they can engage live with their friends. They can engage live with the teacher. And then schedule around the asynchronous, because that's the piece where you can do your work individually and independently. So if there's something that has to happen around that, of course, we know that doesn't work in every instance. So really trying to plan the video aspect that's available for families so that they can pick and choose and base their learning times based on the need of their family. Maria, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, or if that covers the same context.
I think that covers it all. I think one of the things that this is a process of learning, and so we want to be able to equip teachers and buildings with, whether it's the platform that they're using to deliver instruction, or whether it's additional technology tools that allow the student's experience to better follow the teacher as he or she is delivering instruction. Those are the things that I think City Schools is really considering on investing. How much more can they invest to really help teachers create those learning environments that support learning for students in a variety of modes? And I think this is an important investment, because long-term, City Schools can use this technology beyond the imminent crisis that we have right now. So I do think it's an investment that feels very short-term, but it's really a long-term investment, and it's going to definitely impact the opportunities for students and how we support and teach moving forward.
Okay.
Great point.
Okay. This is a note, and I guess from a teacher. Zoom doesn't work well with lower internet speeds, which a lot of our families have. It doesn't work well with my internet. I'm a teacher. Google Meet through G Suite is pretty secure. Anyone accessing outside of the network have to be approved or denied access. Let me see, they're sharing that information, give an idea. Okay.
Thank you.
Content will have to be adjusted. Will the district provide a modified version of the standards per quarter or modified curriculum?
Yes, so great question. Again, thank you for the question. Super thoughtful. We will definitely be providing, as I said earlier, that was one of the reasons I said burning the candle at both ends. The content teams, we have just finalized those schedule recommendations. So they are taking those schedule recommendations and working through, what does that mean? So if I just take third grade math, let's say, what does that look like every day in third grade for both the teacher and the student? And how are the scope and sequences or the plan of that curriculum, Tyrone, and the standards that you were talking about align, so that the teacher knows exactly what is expected of students across the month, across the week, and really knows how we can really both eliminate some of the work that was identified before, or couple pieces together that we're looking at. How do we do that in a meaningful way for students? Because what we also want to make sure is that third graders get what they need in order to be college and career ready, in order to be going into fourth grade. So still looking at that balance and making sure that, one, we're delivering rigorous instruction to our students, and two, at the same time, that we're making sure that as we assess where students are, we can help them both in remediation or recovery as well as acceleration, because we know students will be all over as they come back. We don't want to make assumptions that everybody's lost 2 years of learning. We want to make sure that we can really diagnose exactly how students are performing and make sure that we have the resources and tools to support the continued growth in each grade level.
Okay. Let's see. Then another comment from a teacher is saying that for your families need at least 2 time options for live classes. She did this during the spring and was able to get 14 of her 15 kids on. So thank you for doing that, making adjustments to do that. Will younger students have a more appropriate platform for virtual learning? Google Classroom did not have the necessary tools for students to independently or with very little assistance complete tasks.
Yes, so the same group that I was talking about that's looking at the platform generally has also gotten a ton of feedback around our younger students and a more app-like kind of a setting that will help the students navigate how to get in and out of the learning. So we are currently, and again, discussions around which of those would be most meaningful for at least pre-K and K, if not pre-K through grade 1. And finalizing that discussion as we speak. So really trying to make sure that not only is it easier for students, easier for families to navigate in and out so that students can do that work independently as well.
Go ahead, William.
I'm sorry, real quick, Ms. Lane, there's also widespread concern about special education students who need those accommodations. They may not be able to receive them virtually. Almost certainly some students will not be able to receive them virtually. What's the discussion? What's the plan for those young people as well?
Absolutely. There is a ton of discussion happening right now with our special ed executive director. So my colleague, Dr. Deborah Brooks, is looking at how do we service our students and ensure that what is identified as a need or an accommodation, as you shared, is really met for those students. Again, those were opportunities to think about how do we evaluate and ensure their services are provided. She could also come and give much more detail around that to be able to specifically answer families, but they have done the same work that we've done district-wide in both feedback sessions, listening. Dr. Santelises, as many of you know, does weekly roundups where we've been collecting information. So we've heard loud and clear from families, especially our families with special needs students, around the accommodations that they need and are ensuring that what they're planning also can meet the goals of the family and the students as well.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Tyrone.
No problem. Don't be sorry at all. Jump right in. Have there been any talk around training and doing some type of orientation with parents on how to work through Google Classroom and those other tools that you all use for virtual learning?
I love how you introed in the beginning, William, and said part of the family that you're working with. I feel like you all are part of City Schools family, which makes us really happy. It's almost as if you've been in all of the conversations that we've been having. It is super important to us and something we could not pull off, quite honestly, in spring, where we just had a hotline so families could reach in. What we're working on now is how do we provide families the support of understanding the platforms, the support of being there to walk them through the platform. So we know some people, engage in different ways based on what they're working, what they're doing. Some people are super comfortable with a tool like Google Classroom that you mentioned earlier. And some people are like, in my family, when my father always says to me things like, what does it mean to stream, right? Or so asking those kinds of questions. So our goal is really to do two strategies within that. One is district-wide support, so things that we can offer broadly across the district. But then our chief of schools, Chief John Davis, has been working with the school leaders to really think about what does that look like for each community to be able to support their community of parents as well. And so we'll be looking at that strategy ongoing throughout the year and throughout the closure of, the build of what we're trying to do right now to bring folks together, again, under safety guidelines, et cetera, but be able to really have the supports they need and also to be able to reach out when they don't so that we can ensure that students are getting the service and support they need.
Awesome. Okay, can we get so this William, and this is for us. Can we get Dr. Deborah Brooks on this show soon to talk with Mr. Tyrone and Mr. William about special ed students?
100%. I will I will text her when we get off. I'm sure she will be just as happy as we were to come and talk with you. She, again, I know my answer was a little generic because she has all of the specifics based on both the legal agreements that need to happen for students and the privacy pieces that need to be identified there. So she will absolutely be more than willing. We can coordinate that after to make sure that she's coming sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Well, there you go. Michael, thank you for that. So, and now and again, folks that are still on with us in other groups, we are speaking with the district about virtual learning. So please ask any questions that you have, so that we can ask them. Please share this live, continue to share this live, and comment any questions that you may have. I'm gonna give it back to you, William, for a second and reload and go through and stick my little finger up when I'm ready to talk back.
Sure thing. Maria, if I can go to you for a moment, we know that when students feel connected to their teachers, studies show they learn better, or at least they try harder to learn. And that's really valuable. The not only our teachers and our parents, but our most prized of folks, which is our students, have had a great sense of loss since March. And that's not being with their daily community of fellow scholars, as well as teachers and educators that they've come to know and love and have that relationship. We see in Baltimore County that they're taking Wednesday for teachers to be able to utilize a day, not only for curriculum, but also for family outreach. So the question for me is, what is the city doing to ensure that the teachers are equipped with the time and support to be able to reach out to families?
Well, I'm actually going to pivot that question to Janise for the specifics, but what I will say in a sort of general sense is that connection is on. And I will tell you that my work specifically with city schools to help think through let's say there is a hybrid option that reconnects and makes those connections happen for city schools. But what about for students that for a set of circumstances may not return this year to the school and need a full virtual option? And I think what we spent a lot of time looking into is how do we strive to keep those connections in a variety of ways, not just in the whole class when they come together, but those individual conversations, one-on-one, small groups, or even individual check-ins that teachers can do with students and continue to do. And not just teachers, but everybody says, and we've always known, we want every student to have an adult they connect with in their school. And so those connections are important. And we think about that not just with teachers, counselors, and other staff members, paraeducators sometimes that know the students very well. And so I would say from the virtual space that will be a reality for some of our students for sure, that we need to continue to think about those schedules that allow for those opportunities. And so I'll pass it to Janise to talk a little bit about what the district has done this summer and what they're planning specifically and thinking through for that scheduling component.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maria. I think one of those essential points you have made has been something that has been a close belief system in the district, is that the connections and the content equally matter, right? So we need to make sure that families are connected, students are connected, and as Maria said, to an adult who is really caring for them and looking for their academic work, but also looking for their best well-being. And in doing that, when you see the scheduling models, you will see that teachers still have planning time available, as well as clear guidance around reaching out to families. In the spring, we made recommendations around how many outreach moments or times should happen across the schedule. You'll see with the upper grades that there are things listed as office hours so that teachers are available again for students or for families to outreach. So we were really thoughtful around not only creating student schedules, but also thinking about teacher schedules so that that time and effort could happen within that. Another piece of feedback that we heard that I think, is really a struggle for folks all the way across is how do you separate, your day when you're in a virtual space. You know, there were a lot of teachers who would say, I have night owl students, to your question earlier, William. You know, I'd get a text at 10 o'clock and I wanted to answer because we know our teachers are incredible and just give everything they can to our students. So we wanted to also try to give time and space and be thoughtful around that in the daily schedule so that teachers could do that and at the same time still have space for themselves, because we know this is, you know, the wellness is not just about our students, not just about our families, but about our teachers and our school leaders. And to make this an effort that is really worthwhile, I think Maria brought up a great point earlier, is how do we use this as an opportunity moving forward, right? So not just because of a crisis response, but how does this become part of our ongoing learning, even when we're back in school in a more traditional way? How can we utilize the internet and ways that we've convened and brought together professional learning communities and families in a way that we can sustain that to help us grow?
Thank you for that. Tyrone?
I'm reloaded.
All right.
I'm reloaded. Okay. So a few. So first, let's go back to this one. What is the plan if Baltimore City is still experiencing an increase of COVID cases in October? Will there still be a push to pull certain populations of students into the buildings?
So as I stated earlier, the most important thing is safety and health for all of our folks, whether that's our families, our staff, everyone engaged. We will continue to monitor the situation. I think I shared, but I may not have. We have about 17 work streams across the district working right now. Those work streams range from everything. The one that I'm responsible for is academics and instruction, but there are ones around operations. There are ones around the digital platforms that you spoke of earlier. There are ones around health and safety. So we have folks monitoring that each and every day. Many of you may know we even have a few of our summer school programs where we're actually having small numbers of students coming together and following the guidelines of what we meet in that criteria and are evaluating that every day. Again, that's one of the reasons we didn't say we're waiting until December. But if the numbers spike and there's worrisome information coming to us, we'll be reflecting and adjusting and making sure that we communicate appropriately with the state, with our governor, with MSDE, and with our families to ensure that everybody is aware of the situation and know what our next steps are far in advance of us making a decision.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I want to comment to that and then go on to the next question. As a parent, and then with other parents, I think the frustration and the reason why that question pops up so much is we hear the district, we hear people say safety is so important, safety is so important, but we, as much as we hear that, we also hear we pushing this hybrid model. Right. Also, and so for me as a parent, it doesn't make me feel like, safety is number one priority, because it's still kind of this, I don't want to say game, but it's still this little back and forth thing about like, so now it's October, then we're going to wait, when that really doesn't, as a parent and as other people have said, like the date that's set for October don't really give enough time to measure what's actually, going on around COVID and what could possibly happen. So I think that's because that's in here a lot. Like a lot of people are saying that and talking about that. So just wanted to put that out there and hope I covered you all's thoughts, parents that's saying and that's commenting this stuff. Will teachers have the option to teach virtually from their classrooms?
So again, I think those decisions are being finalized as we work. If the question is, while we are in a virtual setting, can teachers go back into the building to teach?
Yes.
Evaluations are being done around that currently still, around what are the safety guidelines, what needs to be in play, the personal protection equipment, et cetera, and the social distancing there. So I know there are a number of schools who have brought that up. So again, that is one of the considerations that we're talking through right now.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrone, if I could just piggyback off of that, Ms. Lane, what kind of professional development is being offered to teachers at this point, or moving forward before we get back into September in terms of virtual learning? I mean, if they decide to come in the classroom, if it's cleared, that's one thing. But just if we go from the virtual model, just like with our students, we have teachers on different levels in terms of navigating that virtual educational atmosphere. What kind of PDs are happening or planned?
So currently we at the close of spring had quite a robust number of offerings that could happen again asynchronously, that teachers could just engage on their own through, that our online learning team put together, from everything around how to use documents, how to build collaborative spaces for students, as well as what kinds of tools to use. So ways to get kids engaged and be able to use things like Flipgrid, and different tools where students can respond and teachers can respond into that. Those are still available on our online learning platform, on our virtual learning page at City Schools. So teachers can engage in those all summer long, and what's great about them is, I have a friend who's a teacher in Harford County, and she said to me, I'm so overwhelmed by this. I feel like I have to do something 5 or 6 times before I get it. You could do that 5 or 6 times. You could go in, you can practice, you can log through. They're not 7 hours long. They're just bite-sized nuggets of information for teachers to work through. The teams are currently working on what will professional development look like when teachers return. So addressing some of those pieces that both you, William, and Tyrone brought up from the questions around what's the new curriculum, or what's the adjusted curriculum look like, or the scope and sequence kinds of pieces. But coupled with that will be, what does it look like in a virtual environment? So instead of trying to do virtual learning here and curriculum here, how do we bring the two together so that teachers can engage with it in meaningful ways? We also know that there are teachers who are saying they don't want to wait until late August to, have that when they return. So we're also looking at, are there additional offerings that we can put out that are optional, in addition to those ones that I spoke of earlier, to ensure that teachers feel comfortable upon their return.
Got you. Amazing question to I want to get to this. I'm going to come to you. Okay. So we were talking about, because she read my mind. She's there where I'm at. But anyway, when we were talking about kind of scheduling and giving teachers time, time will need to be allocated to teachers for one-on-one check-ins. This should be a high priority when creating schedules. And with that lesson plan, and you were speaking, talking about teachers' lesson planning, and they say lesson planning time and parent outreach are 2 different things. Time needs to be allocated to both during the schedule. So you want to comment?
That has been considered, because that has been feedback that's been collected ongoing, and want to make sure that when you see things in our scheduling models, you'll see opportunities for both that teacher planning time, so that teachers have that built into their day, but they also have that communication space. So whether it's a one-on-one, whether it's a small group of adults that they want to bring together, or even in early grades, we even talked about having a parent meeting at the start of the week so that families could log in and see what's coming in the week for pre-K and K students. So really, we're thoughtful about where that could happen in this space to allot time versus just assuming that that should happen.
Awesome. You talked about these streams, 17 different stream working lines. Are parents a part of any of those 17 streams?
So depending upon the stream, I know that there are different ways that the leaders have organized in that, but many of our parent organizations that we take our information to is where we do that work with parents more so than the work stream teams. We've had teachers, principals, and district office on those teams. And then we're doing our parent and community feedback forums. I think Tina may have spoke to you last time about them, but we're taking that work forward to families and having them engage in that in the town halls and community sessions that are designed specifically for parents. So that was another component that was added in to ensure that parents had voice in the process.
Yeah, that was, the problem with that, and the concern with that, and what people share is like, we've been hearing for a couple of weeks that questions that are posted, we would get answers to them later on and posted, but we don't see them. We never see the answers to those questions actually being, answered. They'll say, or we'll hear questions saying, oh, this is from someone in the audience, and everybody's looking through the comments like, well, where was that question at? Because I didn't see that one. But anyway, many
That's helpful
teachers.
feedback. I will take that back to our communications team, because the expectation is when those Facebook Live sessions happen and community sessions happen, that typically what happens, just so you know from the inside, is we get those questions after and then respond and send back. So sometimes they roll them up in an FAQ versus one-by-one response, but I'll make sure to share that back with our communications team.
Okay, awesome, nice. See that, y'all? Share this. This is good, right? Getting heard.
I also texted Deborah Brooks, and she said she's happy to come. So we're making
awesome. Awesome. Many teachers, this was a comment, say many teachers, but Yvette, I'm going to add with the many teachers' parents also, because I've heard this. Many teachers and parents are concerned about the ability of janitorial staff being able to keep the schools clean even before COVID, and especially the bathrooms. What will be done to help ease this concern for the transition to the hybrid model concerning school and its cleanliness?
Great. You guys are stretching me all the way. I'm in academics and instruction, but
I know this
is right. I love it.
I think you should invite operations.
Exactly. We're going to have
you invite operations.
That's right.
We could go through all the departments. Just let us know.
Check one by one. I can just say to you that, again, there is a work stream that is completely focused on that work. And they're developing safety guidelines that we're working with principals. We have principal leadership academies in August. I know that is one of the topics that is part of that. But again, we can bring more information and the experts that have that information to you, so they can give you the more detailed response.
Okay. Academics.
I got that, I think.
Would it be possible for a teacher who taught pre-K to teach the same students now in kindergarten?
That wasn't a model that was under consideration and questions. I would say that they should talk to their school leader about that to see if it's an option for them to loop and move into that grade level. And there's been other discussions where I know some schools, instead of looping the teacher, have been sending the students as a cohort. So if they were in first grade together, they're going into second grade in the same classroom. So at least they would know one another. They may not know their teacher, but they would know that community. But I would definitely have that conversation with your school leader.
Awesome. You hear that? So at your school, go have that conversation with your school leader. Thank you all. Continue to post. Continue to share this live. We have a few minutes. I am going to give it back to our great brother, William.
Thank you, Tyrone. Ms. Lane, Maria, regionally throughout the nation and in some schools that have decided to come back, we're seeing this new move towards pods, the pod system, with just a selected group of young people. And this is not only in schools, obviously, because every school district is not back in session, but in neighborhoods, with socialization. Has the district had any discussion about the possibility of a pod format if and when we do go back to the hybrid model or the brick and mortar model?
So I can start and then see if Maria has anything to add to that. I think what we've been really thinking about, again, is how can we bring students back in small groups that could be identified as a pod, or, a high need population that we want to make sure we have face-to-face time with in a safe way. And thinking about what does that look like. We've also been studying what's happening everywhere, right? So the different work streams are looking at local districts that are working the same way we are. We meet, I will say, at the academic side, we have a weekly assistant superintendent's meeting where all of the school leaders and academics get together for a virtual call once a week to think about issues around these pieces. So this is a newer one that's coming up. around how to bring those pods together. Also, how do you provide those opportunities? I think, William, as you started to say, in things like the Y or something in the neighborhood where, again, following social guidelines and health guidelines, students can convene together. That is a newer topic that's just been coming up. So we're just beginning that discussion in the district. We don't have any, any headway yet in decision making around that, but we'll continue to monitor that, as well as thinking about, as we bring students back in a hybrid kind of way, what are we studying and learning from that? Maria, I don't know if you have anything additional to add there.
Nothing much more except to say that this concept is bubbling up, as you mentioned, William. I think the schools that are starting very, very soon, which are the schools mostly in the south of the United States, we've been sort of taking a look at how school districts are supporting these concepts, because a lot of these concepts are sort of community-based, and I think this will also influence and maybe revolutionize the way we partner, school districts partner with community organizations, with local home associations, to think about that community engagement in a different way. I think it's very early to tell. And like Janise said, I think we are looking at how does this evolve. There is a wave of schools that are going to be starting school in a week or 2 weeks. And, if you're in Florida, they have a very different way in which they're starting than the way we're thinking about starting schools up north, and even within the differences in the state. So, this is a learning for all of us, for sure.
And I would just add, the last comment to that is, it is us monitoring, but it's our cabinet senior leadership team regularly convenes to have these conversations, to really investigate, as Maria said, what we're learning, and then, potential implications for us.
Thank you. Tara, was that one?
Yeah. Well, I'm pulling back real quick for y'all. Excuse me, a couple of things. Point I want to quick from our folks. Folks are saying it's great idea to invite operations, but it's evident that safety concerns must be addressed before academic and curriculum concerns. It's basic Maslow's hierarchy. If people don't feel safe learning, it isn't going to happen. If they don't feel safe, then learning, if they feel unsafe, then learning will not happen. Also, from a lot of people here, and they're wanting to know, Ms. Lane, if you can also make the call or put it in the atmosphere that parents need to be a part of those work groups. Again, another comment that the town halls are not sufficient and they lack transparency that many parents are looking for during this educational crisis, which is true. I can attest to that. And then also wanted to bring up the point and make sure, how can we make sure that the emphasis is on teacher assessment of learning needs rather than standardized testing?
Right. So I think it's really important that as we're doing this, we're building in the assessment for what students need and what teachers need to drive instruction to support their students. So when we're thinking about this, it is, as we work in the curriculum, I used math earlier, if we're working in ELA and we're looking at third grade, how are we measuring day to day what students are doing? And that's not a formal assessment, right? Those are strategies like exit tickets, or things like I talked about before with the flip grid. What kind of information do you want to add to that, that we can measure and adjust students within that? And then there's more measures along the way where you may be measuring after, a module of study where students are in that work. And those are all used to make decisions around small group instruction, next steps for whole group instruction, what happens within that. So that is embedded in the plans of what we built and what we will continue to design for professional development and learning for teachers along that process.
Well, this is the last one, y'all. I'm gonna ask. And then kind of add it to that. Which subjects will be taught remotely, and will there be resource classes? I'm sorry, will resource classes be covered. PE, art, music, computer science, and even though a lot of that stuff don't even exist no more, but will that be offered during this virtual
Absolutely.
time?
So when we look at instruction, we look at it from a holistic aspect. We know that some students are really motivated by the arts, and that's a way that they integrate their learning. We will be identifying, when you see the schedules, that there will be opportunities in all of the grade levels for resource subjects. You will notice too, when you go in there, that, based on the guidelines, we can't have the typical day online where you have everything from start to finish at 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So in different areas, you'll notice that we've had to make adjustments around those recommendations. But we want to make sure that students have wide exposure to all aspects of learning, not just, social studies, science, ELA, and math, but really looking at all aspects of learning.
Tyrone, if I could leapfrog you for a moment, Ms. Lane, another concern from parents is that they weren't always clear on the instruction that their child was supposed to receive. And so one of the questions is, how will the district ensure that parents know exactly, it's obviously different. We're not going to be handing out syllabus, courses in the traditional manner. How's the district going to ensure that the parents know exactly what their scholar is supposed to be doing in the course?
That's a great question. Again, there will be some guidance that will be created at the district level. And provided for families so that when they log on to the website, they will see a third grader during this week of instruction should be engaged in XYZ. But what's going to be really important is that families communicate with their teacher and make sure that they are engaging in regular communication in those check-ins that you talked about during the scheduling and the opportunities there. We want to make sure that families have a really close connection to the teacher so that the teacher can help families know what's coming, clear expectations, as well as knowing where a student is performing. If they're struggling, if they're not engaging, if they're excelling in something, we want to make sure that we can keep that communication open for families. And there will be ongoing workshops. I'm going to just do a little add in. I talked to Dr. Brooks, and she shared pretty much what I did, just as our, overarching statement, that she'll be providing workshops for families regarding accessibility tools for our students with disabilities on an online platform. And students will be provided with supports for both academic and behavioral needs as identified in their IEPs. So one of the things that's really important, no matter what your student's profile is in the district, again, is that connection, and that it is essential on both sides. We want to make sure at city schools that we are accessible to our families, and we also want families to be accessible to us. So come to us when you need us. Make sure, I think that the best value add out of these conversations is not us bringing information to you, it's the information you give back to us, so that when we finish these conversations, as I said, I followed up with Deborah, I will follow up with communications, we'll follow up and look around to think about more broadly, how can we improve what we're doing? We're constantly looking for that feedback. So I just also want to say this is greatly powerful for us, but also it helps us become better, right? So being able to take back that we want to have parents on a work stream versus just, I'm trying to figure out, I asked somebody, but I haven't gotten the answer yet, around what our community piece is called. We have, I know Tina's team from communications has been taking out some work where they're having parent institutes and getting information. I will follow up and send an email to you all around that, so you can also add that to a way that families can give information besides just the typical CEO forums that we've been having.
Thank you. Tyrone?
That'd be great. We're about a couple of these other questions are definitely operations questions. Octavia, I see you, and a lot of people are still asking like safety questions. I know no one can assure us that COVID will be gone. They can tell us that the buildings will be safe as possible as they can make them, but we won't really know. The questions about will heat and air be working correctly?
That's right. Yeah, all top priorities for those work streams, and happy to have them come back. I think, your earlier comment, of course, safety is a top priority of ours. That is also one of the reasons that we're starting virtual, is to make sure that we have all of these pieces underway to ensure the safety and well-being.
And then this question is why I was tickled, because it said, will the school be responsible or a liability due to COVID if the student catch it?
Wouldn't we all love to be able to figure that part out, right?
Right. I mean, the police.
Talk about some tracing that needs to happen, right? We'd have to go back and then I got it.
Yeah. So, but again, fam and folks who are watching, thank you as always. It's a pleasure to have you join us and get your questions out and ask and actually sit through an educational show with us, right? Like, they think people don't want to do it. Parents don't want to hear, and we prove them wrong every single week when we get over 1,000 viewers, 1,000 watches that's coming, sitting, asking questions, engaging. So we want to thank y'all for that. Again, our regulars, our new folks, thank you for commenting. Thank you, Ms. Lane and Ms. Navarro, for being here and joining us, being a part of this process and being open and letting us know. I mean, Ms. Lane, even if some people don't appreciate it, I appreciate when people do it. To me, seem like an extra step. So the text Dr. Brooks, right here and now, what I mean? Like, those are things that I love to see and see, these processes and people like Sean, that they really care. So I appreciate you for stepping out there. Again, thank you all for coming. You can work on getting us operations. That would be really, really great. So that we can, move forward and have those questions asked for our folks too. Again, that's kind of my, final little thoughts. Thursdays, Tyrone House, parents, join us on Thursdays. And this Thursday is going to be kind of like a little small kind of party because it's a national holiday, and that's Tyrone's birthday. Oh. So,
Ms. Lane, Tyrone.
Yes. Happy birthday.
I heard Ms. Lane say what in her mind, like, what, wait, which one?
Which one? Are we off?
No, Janise, you're not off.
We're never off, but I will celebrate you, Tyrone. And it's Thursday, no doubt.
Don't worry, Ms. Lane. I just found out 2 weeks ago. Don't worry about it.
We can all do this again and have a little party together. I just also really want to say thank you for having us. Again, we are blessed in Baltimore to have the best students, the best families. Our teachers work tirelessly, our school leaders. And I just want to say that we appreciate the feedback. I know that sometimes people think we're not listening. I can guarantee you we're listening, and we are taking what you are sharing with us back to impact what we do every day. So thank you for taking the time. I know how busy you all are, but to get numbers in, usually we're really happy if we're in the hundreds and 500s, but in the thousands is super impressive. And I would love, once we're in this, through October or November, Maria and I are happy to come back and see how it's going. Our family's really experiencing what we've intended, and how can we shift and adjust according to that. So, please take our word that we're happy to come back, but really greatly appreciate your time. And Tyrone and William, thank you for facilitating the conversation for us tonight.
Awesome. It seemed like earlier, virtual training videos for teachers was mentioned. Teacher said it was on personal leave last year. Could you tell her where to find these?
Absolutely. If you go on our city schools website and look under virtual learning and the platform there, you'll see the online learning platform. And if not, feel free to shoot me an email. She probably has my email, and we'll make sure she has them.
Thank you.
Sure.
I ain't
All
got-
right.
I thought
Thank
we were
you.
doing another birthday celebration. And
I didn't know either. Miss Lane, thank you very much. Maria, thank you very much for joining us. Family, once again, thank you for the great questions and comments and being continually engaged in this process, most important process. Join us on Thursday at 5 o'clock at Tyrone's house for the national, as you heard it here, declared a national holiday, his birthday. Thank you all so much. See you all next Monday.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.